Have you ever trusted someone so blindly that you felt nothing in the world could break that bond? Imagine giving your heart, your dreams, and your future to one person, only to find out later that the very same person was planning your downfall. This is not a movie plot. This is a chilling, real-life story from the city of Lucknow, where love turned into betrayal and a husband's devotion became the reason for his own tragic end. In the narrow lanes near Prague-Narayan Road in Lucknow, locals often spoke about a humble young man named Himanshu Sonkar. He was only 27, yet carried the burden of his entire family on his shoulders. Himanshu was not wealthy. He didn't own land, businesses, or fancy cars. His daily survival came from driving an e-rickshaw across the busy markets and crowded streets of Lucknow. Every morning he left his house before sunrise, and every night he returned home exhausted but satisfied, because his earnings kept his family alive. To his neighbors, he was not just a rickshaw driver. He was an honest, hard-working soul whose kindness was known to all. But what made his life special was not just his work ethic. It was his love story. Years before, Himanshu had fallen in love with Payal, a girl from his extended family. Payal was his aunt's daughter, which in traditional Indian society was frowned upon. Families objected, relatives warned them, and society mocked the thought of such a union. Yet the two stood firm. Payal had confessed her feelings first, and Himanshu, deeply in love, could not resist. They knew they were against the world, but they were also convinced that nothing could break their bond. In 2018, despite opposition, they got married. What seemed like a fairy tale love marriage was actually the beginning of a dark, twisted journey. After their marriage, Payal left Delhi and moved to Lucknow to live with Himanshu. She had big dreams, unlike the simple life Himanshu lived. Her ambition was to become an air hostess. Though she had dropped her studies earlier, she wanted to restart her education. Himanshu, selfless and supportive, encouraged her. He promised that no matter how hard he had to work, he would make sure she studied and followed her dreams. Day and night, he toiled harder, saving every rupee to pay for her classes. While he drove his rented rickshaw through dust and heat, Payal attended her training at a center near Civil Lines Hospital. To many, their relationship looked like a love story where sacrifice and support defined the couple. But behind the smiles, cracks had already started forming. The sacrifices Himanshu made for his wife were not small. Payal's training demanded money, far more than what he earned daily. Still, he arranged it. Sometimes he borrowed, sometimes he cut his own needs. Neighbors often said, "What a lucky wife she must be to have a husband like Himanshu." Yet the truth was different. Payal, though grateful in the beginning, slowly began changing. She wanted more than what Himanshu could give. She craved luxury, modern life, and attention. Himanshu, on the other hand, believed that love was enough. That belief would one day cost him everything. January 21st, 2025. A night that would change everything forever. It was a cold Tuesday evening when Himanshu suddenly stepped out of his home around 10 p.m. His parents asked where he was going so late, but he only replied, "I have some urgent work. I'll be back soon." No one in the family imagined that those words would be his last to them. That night he carried 3,500 rupees in his pocket, money he owed to a relative named Ayush who had been pressuring him to return the debt. Himanshu was on his way to settle part of it, but the man who left his home that night never returned. As the night dragged on, his family grew restless. Himanshu's phone had been stolen a week earlier, which made contacting him impossible. Hours passed, but there was no sign of him. By dawn, fear had gripped the household. Where had he gone? Why wasn't he back? Calls were made to relatives, friends, and acquaintances, but no one had seen him. Panic spread like wildfire. Finally, they traced his e-rickshaw through the GPS installed by its owner. It was found abandoned near Hanuman Dam, close to the Gomti River. When the family rushed there, their worst fears began to take shape. The rickshaw stood silently, but Himanshu was missing. The family checked nearby CCTV footage. What they saw deepened the mystery. At around 10:15 p.m., Himanshu was captured on camera parking his rickshaw near the temple. He walked around, appeared to be talking on a mobile phone, yet he wasn't supposed to own one anymore. His old phone had been stolen, and he had never mentioned buying a new one, so where had this phone suddenly come from? Moments later, he was seen jumping over a wall near the temple and vanishing from sight. He never returned to the rickshaw. Instead, another man appeared in a different camera. He entered the same area where Himanshu went, but came running back just minutes later, alone. That man was none other than Ayush, his distant relative. By the next morning, the family's fear turned into despair. Himanshu had not come home, and suspicion was growing. Questions spread like poison. Why was Ayush there? Why did he return without Himanshu? And why did Himanshu have a mysterious mobile phone that no one in the family knew about? These unanswered questions led them to the police station on January 23rd. The case was filed and investigations began. But what no one in the family knew yet was that the biggest betrayal had not come from outside. It had come from inside their own home. What happens when the person you love most, the one you sacrifice everything for, turns out to be hiding the darkest secret of all? When police began digging into Himanshu's disappearance, the truth they uncovered would shake his family to the core and reveal a betrayal so deep no one could have imagined it. After Himanshu's e-rickshaw was found abandoned near the Gomti River, the police formed multiple search teams. They scoured the riverbank, questioned locals, and replayed every second of CCTV footage from the Hanuman Dham temple. In one video, a shadowy figure appeared. Ayush, a clerk in the municipal corporation and a distant relative of Himanshu. He was seen following the same path as Himanshu, only to return alone minutes later, his body language tense, his face partly hidden by his hands. For investigators, this was no coincidence. Someone had led Himanshu into a trap. The family watched the footage in disbelief. Himanshu's sister instantly recognized Ayush's clothes. They were the same he had worn at a recent wedding. His uncle also confirmed his gait and mannerisms. Suspicion pointed directly at Ayush, but the biggest shock for the grieving family came not from Ayush's involvement, but from their daughter-in-law, Payal. As relatives mourned and starved out of worry, Payal remained disturbingly calm. She ate heartily when others could barely swallow, and she spent hours glued to her phone, calling and texting someone constantly. Whispers began spreading in the household. Who was she talking to, and why didn't she seem devastated like the rest? When police visited the house and requested her phone, Payal hesitated. She argued, grew defensive, and accused her in-laws of doubting her character while her husband was still missing. But under police insistence, she handed it over. Within hours, digital forensics uncovered something explosive. Her call records showed constant communication with Ayush before, during, and even after Himanshu vanished. It was as if she knew exactly what was happening that night. On January 24th, the police summoned Payal to the station for routine questioning. What began as simple inquiries soon turned into a confession that would leave everyone shattered. As investigators pressed her, Payal's mask began to crack. Under pressure, she admitted the unthinkable. Himanshu was no longer alive. His body, she revealed, could be found in the Gomti River. That evening, divers retrieved his lifeless body, floating in silence beneath the dark waters. The discovery sent waves of grief through the Soncar family. His father collapsed on the spot, his mother wailed uncontrollably, and neighbors wept for the man they had admired for his simplicity and hard work. But the pain deepened when police revealed the mastermind behind his murder. It was none other than his own wife, Payal. To understand how a love marriage could turn into a death sentence, we must go back a few years. Payal had once loved Himanshu deeply. She was the one who first proposed, insisting that no matter the hardships, she wanted to spend her life with him. But after their marriage, reality hit hard. Himanshu's meager earnings could barely cover daily needs, let alone provide the luxury Payal secretly craved. She dreamt of modern clothes, branded cosmetics, and a glamorous future as an air hostess. Himanshu tried his best, sacrificing his comfort and working longer hours, but nothing seemed enough. Slowly, her heart drifted elsewhere. Here, enter Ayush, the same man who had once lent Himanshu money. Ayush was not just a relative, he was also Payal's best friend Tanu's brother. With his stable government job and easy access to money, Ayush lived a lifestyle far more appealing to Payal. When she visited Tanu's house, Ayush showered her with attention, gifts, and promises. He paid for her college tuition, funded her air hostess training, and spoiled her with luxuries Himanshu could never afford. Payal found herself caught between two men, her husband who loved her selflessly but struggled financially, and Ayush, who could provide wealth and comfort at the cost of morality. At first, Payal felt guilty. She tried to break off her secret meetings, even promising Himanshu that she would cut ties with Ayush. He forgave her, blind in love, and believed her every word. But temptation pulled her back. Soon, her relationship with Ayush deepened. By 2022, reports later revealed Ayush had spent over 1 lakh rupees on her education and desires. Himanshu, unaware of the depth of their affair, continued to trust his wife completely. Little did he know, his faith in her would seal his fate. But the secret romance came with complications. Ayush wanted more. He wanted Payal not as a hidden affair, but as his wife. He pressured her, insisting she leave Himanshu. But divorce was not simple. Himanshu loved her too much to let go, and Payal feared society's judgment. Together, she and Ayush began whispering about a darker solution. If Himanshu were no longer alive, their path would be clear. At first, it was just talk, but soon talk turned into planning, and planning turned into attempts. Months before the murder, they had tried twice to eliminate Himanshu. Once, Ayush purchased a pistol, considering hiring someone to shoot him, but the plan was abandoned, fearing too much noise and attention. Another time, Payal tried to slip sedatives into Himanshu's food, hoping to stage an accident, but that too failed. Their frustration grew, but so did their determination. Then Payal remembered something crucial. Himanshu didn't know how to swim. If he were pushed into a river, it would look like an accident. Nobody would suspect murder. The plan was set. On the night of January 21st, everything unfolded like a carefully staged play. Payal handed Himanshu the very money Ayush had given her, pretending it was for debt repayment. She also gave him a mobile phone, assuring him it would help him contact Ayush. What Himanshu didn't realize was that this phone was planted, designed to hide their traces. Innocent and trusting, he took it without question. Around 10 p.m., he left home for the last time. Guided by calls from Ayush, he reached Hanumant Dham. There, Ayush met him with another relative, Jackie, who waited on a scooter. When Himanshu handed over the money, Ayush lured him toward the riverbank. With no warning, he shoved Himanshu into the icy waters. Unable to swim, Himanshu sank. Ayush fled with Jackie, leaving the darkness of the river to swallow his victim whole. The tragedy could have ended there, marked as a drowning accident, but Payal and Ayush grew careless. CCTV cameras captured Ayush near the scene. Call records revealed Payal's constant communication with him. Jackie even tried to delete temple footage the next morning, raising further suspicion. Slowly, the net closed in. When confronted, Payal broke down and confessed, exposing the entire conspiracy. Her greed, Ayush's obsession, and Jackie's assistance had all combined to end the life of a man whose only crime was loving too deeply. For the Soncar family, the revelation was a double-edged sword. They had lost their son, but worse, they discovered that his death was orchestrated by the very woman he trusted most. His wife, whom he had supported, encouraged, and loved unconditionally, had plotted his death alongside her secret lover. The betrayal cut deeper than the murder itself. The father who once welcomed Payal into the family now looked at her with burning hatred. Neighbors who admired their love story now whispered in disgust. Himanshu's story was no longer just about a missing man. It had become a chilling tale of deceit and greed. And yet, despite the confession, many unanswered questions remained. Why would Payal, who once fought her family to marry Himanshu, turn against him so cruelly? Was it love that faded, or was it money that blinded her? Did she ever truly love him, or was it always about ambition? When Payal finally confessed her role in Himanshu's murder, the world of the Soncar family collapsed. For them, it wasn't just the death of their son, it was the destruction of their trust, their pride, and the very foundation of their household. The boy who worked day and night to support them had been betrayed not by a stranger, but by his own wife. And the man he once called a relative and friend had pushed him into his watery grave. The crime was solved, but the wounds it left behind would never fully heal. On January 24th, after Himanshu's body was pulled from the cold waters of the Gomti River, his parents refused to accept his death as mere fate. Grief quickly turned into anger. They demanded justice, insisting that the guilty be arrested before they would perform his final rites. Crowds gathered, neighbors and relatives alike chanting for accountability. The street outside their home filled with mourners holding placards, their voices echoing through Lucknow's night air. Police officers and senior officials rushed to the scene to calm the chaos. Only after promises of swift action did the family agree to lay Himanshu to rest. Meanwhile, investigators pieced together the final threads of the conspiracy. Payal had provided her phone to Ayush, guiding him through every step and updating him about the family's suspicions. CCTV footage captured Ayush at the scene, while Jackie's reckless attempt to delete the recordings made their guilt undeniable. By January 26th, both Ayush and Jackie were in custody, facing charges of murder and conspiracy. Payal, the mastermind who had orchestrated the betrayal, was also arrested. The love story that once began with courage and defiance had now ended in handcuffs and disgrace. But the courtroom drama was only part of the aftermath. For the Soncar family, the emotional scars cut deeper than the legal proceedings. They remembered how Himanshu once proudly said, "Payal sacrificed everything for me." To discover that the same woman had secretly plotted his death was unbearable. His mother wept day and night, cursing the day her son had fallen in love. His father, once a man of patience and calm, now carried anger in his eyes, vowing never to forgive Payal. Their home, once filled with laughter and dreams of grandchildren, was now silent, haunted by memories and shadows. For Payal, the reality of her choices sank in slowly. She had once clung, aimed that love mattered more than wealth, that she would live with Himanshu even if he was poor. But as the years passed, her ambitions grew. She wanted modern clothes, a glamorous career, and a life of luxury. Ayush provided those things, fueling her greed. She convinced herself that love without money was meaningless. But instead of choosing honesty, like divorce or separation, she chose blood. And in choosing that, she destroyed not only her husband's life but her own future as well. Ayush too faced the bitter consequences of his obsession. He thought money could buy love, loyalty, and even marriage. He forgot that trust cannot be purchased with currency notes. His desire to possess Payal made him cross every boundary of morality. Now, instead of enjoying the comfort of his government job and family respect, he sat behind prison walls, branded a murderer. His name, once associated with stability, was now cursed in hushed whispers across Lucknow. The same people who once respected his government position now pointed fingers in disgust. Jackie's role, though smaller, showed how influence and manipulation can drag even others into darkness. He had followed Ayush blindly, helping him on the night of the crime and later attempting to cover up the evidence. But the law spares no accomplice. His arrest proved that loyalty to the wrong person can destroy lives in ways one never expects. For Jackie, the choice of siding with his cousin meant throwing away his own future. In this story, no one walked away unharmed. When the trial began, the evidence was overwhelming. Payal's call records, Ayush's presence on CCTV, Jackie's suspicious actions, and the confessions all painted a picture too strong to deny. Yet, what shocked the public most wasn't just the murder itself, it was the motive. How could a woman murder the very man who loved her unconditionally? How could wealth and greed blind someone to the point of planning such cruelty? The newspapers covered it for weeks, labeling it a crime of passion turned into a crime of greed. Social media burned with debates about morality, loyalty, and the dangers of blind trust. But beneath the headlines and gossip, one truth stood unshaken. Himanshu was a victim of his own kindness. He trusted his wife completely. He believed in her dreams more than his own. He worked harder, borrowed money, and even suffered humiliation, just so she could study and live the life she wanted. In the end, that very devotion became his weakness. Payal used his trust as a weapon, turning his love into a trap that cost him his life. His story became a painful reminder that even the purest love can be betrayed. For the audience hearing this tale, the lesson is chilling but important. Not every smile hides honesty. Not every promise of love lasts forever. Relationships built on lies and greed eventually collapse, often dragging innocent souls into tragedy. The Soncar family lost their son, the community lost its faith, and Himanshu lost his future, all because two people chose selfishness over truth. In the end, what remains is a cautionary tale that asks us to look deeper into the people we trust. So now, I leave you with this haunting question. If true love can be destroyed so easily by greed and desire, how do we ever know whom we can really trust?